Welcome to the Crypto Podcast. You can find all our episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I'm also a podcasting coach because I've got 4 other podcasts, with 4 of them getting into the top 0.5%. This one now currently at the top 1.5%. And you'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. Today, my guest, he's the CEO and co-founder of Freeport. Please welcome Colin Johnson.
Hey, Roy, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. You might let the listeners know, who's Colin?
Who's Colin? Excellent question. I've been answering that one for 35 years now. So I am the CEO and co-founder of Freeport, as you mentioned previously. I dove pretty headfirst into Web3 roughly, it's been about a year ago now. But before that, I worked in tech out in Silicon Valley. So I was at Apple for 5 years. I owned product marketing for Apple Cash. Before that, I was at American Express on the East Coast. So, either East Coast or West Coast, I'm generally pretty happy. I don't spend a ton of time in between them. But I'm now back. I'm now back east in Atlanta, building out Freeport, which will be the future of fine art ownership on chain. And I am hopeful that we will be pretty resilient to all the stuff that just happened in the market.
No, excellent. So before we delve into that, and I know obviously you've worked with Apple, but what was your own personal journey with blockchain?
Sure. So I read the Bitcoin white paper probably 8 or 9 years ago. I've had a few nerdy friends ever since I was young. So they got me into it. I read the white paper, and I remember immediately thinking, well, this is different. And it was the confluence of like all these different factors that come into it at once, having sort of the immutable ledger and the decentralized nature of it. And obviously all the other aspects that get tossed around. And you started to realize, okay, with all these different elements, you can actually have something that's a trustless system, right? That actually can account for value in a way unlike anything we've seen before. And there's something kind of infatuating about the idea of software being that powerful, of being able to just completely replace these sort of trusted institutions. So from that point on, I was sold. And then I read the Ethereum white paper. It was probably 4 years after that or something to that effect. And I was even more taken aback at what smart contracts could allow. Right. And then I just started to think through, okay, what are the implications of this? And they were relatively profound. So, I decided to invest back then. And then I've been kind of a closet crypto enthusiast, although my family would probably say not closet so much because I annoyed them at every family vacation about how they should all be owning crypto through the ups and downs. But then I just decided at some point, when I was at Apple, I wrote a white paper actually, and it had 8 different things on it, 8 different elements that I thought Apple could implement in the crypto space. They have since not implemented any of those, but I think they will at some point in the future. But I got put on a research group there, and we talked about it a bit, and we sort of came to the conclusion that a lot of it wasn't super actionable, and I decided I wanted to go take action and be in the Web3 space. So that's when I left and got into crypto myself. I also did a bit of work with a philanthropic group called Angel Protocol on the Terra Blockchain before the Terra Blockchain went very, very sour. So I'm happy to tell war stories about that as well. But that's sort of the extent of my engagement. I've got a lot of friends who are in the space, tons of chats with folks who've been through the ups and downs from DeFi summer to the NFT craze and everything in between.
And you mentioned the white paper. And the craziness that's going on. So basically, I'm kind of delving deep into kind of sovereignty, common law, because I see it's a way of actually freedom, And there's one, I won't give the name of them because I don't want people to be kind of researching them, but basically they're very big that are doing this, and they've created their own crypto coin. So when you're doing a course or doing anything, and I asked for the white paper, and I got an email back. What's a white paper?
That's a red flag. That's what we call a red flag.
Exactly. So it's like, that's the scary part of it. I know. And you mentioned, it was a Terra. Yeah. That was a little concern. So I think there was actually a lot of hope with the Terra blockchain. I think a lot of these founders get pretty full of themselves and then just think that they should be able to play God. And I'm talking about the founders of these chains. So, you had like Do Kwon previously, and now you've got SBF, the founder of FTX as well. I think they get to the point where they're realizing that they're kind of managing entire ecosystems and like managing entire economies and foundational structures
to crypto that are so massive that they just sort of start to think that they can do anything, right? And that like customers' funds are really theirs to play with, and that they can just take whatever, kind of, or make whatever kind of moves that they want to, and take all the risk in the world that's really being borne by other people. I think that's a terrible spot for us to be in. And I think,
is
it happens.
Is it like, because I mean, even I
Yeah.
think Elon tweeted the other day, and like I know Gensler, who used to be in MIT, there's all a connection to the next guy, connection to somebody whose daughter is dating this guy, and everything. It looks like the whole lot is actually orchestrated from the very start, rather than somebody getting lucky and building something. It looks like the whole lot that's how it got so big, because the bad boys are backing this, getting it out there so that they're getting the backhanders at the end of the day.
I think that's giving a lot of credit to some of those people. I think that there are a lot of relationships like that. I saw that sort of cyclical nature of, I think it was like Caroline and SPF and the professor at Penn and, at MIT, excuse me. And I'm sure those connections matter, right? Like there's certainly the way that doors are open for folks. I'd be more skeptical that anyone could have planned for this activity. I think it was mostly SBF, and he likely got, man, I probably shouldn't even be commenting on a lot of this stuff, because we are going to have to interact with the SEC. We're going to be interacting with the SEC to get approval for the approach that we're taking. But I'll give some commentary. I think that it's likely they're aware of each other, that they have sort of engaged, that there's like, look, I went to Princeton, not that I don't really love bringing that up, but I've seen the interactions between people who are of privilege and how they interact with each other. And it's a frequent occurrence, and it certainly gives you a leg up. And there's a lot of helping that goes on, let's just say, in that atmosphere. I'm sure there's some relationships like that. I doubt it's masterminded, just because it ended up in a pretty dumb spot. But it's fun to read about all those theories, and like maybe I'll be proven wrong. I also thought there was no way that FTX was going to go down. Right, I had full confidence that this is a respectable exchange, but clearly it was not. So I could be wrong about this too.
And like the thing is, it's kind of hurting the industry, because if you look at blockchain, like NFTs, everything, what it can actually do, and even what you're doing, like when something like FTX happens or Luna, people just go, the whole thing is a scam, and they basically black label the whole lot, instead of kind of realizing this happens in every industry.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the best comparison that I can think of is Bernie Madoff, right? Like, people didn't start saying, well, there shouldn't be hedge funds at all, when Bernie Madoff decided to run his Ponzi scheme, and like he basically took customers' money and gave it to the sort of existing customers as returns, until that ended up in a bad spot. We didn't just say, hey, let's shut down finance then, right? We said, well, this guy is doing terrible things, and we unfortunately didn't do enough due diligence to understand that he shouldn't be a trusted actor. And I think that's similar to what's happened here with SBF. Yeah, a lot of these, look, I'm a big believer that regulation should exist for centralized exchanges and should probably not exist for decentralized exchanges, because there's sort of transparency. In decentralized exchanges, it's like, that's the software, that's the code. You can see what's going to happen. Like, the if-then clause is there. When it comes to a centralized exchange like FTX, it's not an if-then clause. It's a bunch of like shadowy backroom deals that are going on, and people lending cash and having agreements that are off-chain. And I think that should be regulated. But I think when you have things that are purely software on-chain, we should probably get to a point where they're very lightly regulated at most.
Yeah, definitely. So I know that you were kind of instrumental in raising, I think it was for 3 charities. It was like 1.5 million or something like that. So you may tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, so there aren't many good stories these days in the crypto space. Not a lot of like positive, uplifting things. I was posting on Farcaster, actually, which is sort of like a decentralized Twitter competitor, that we need John Krasinski to come back with his some good news that he used to do during the COVID outbreak. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but basically he had this YouTube channel that was like a few minutes of, here's good stuff that's happening during the COVID outbreak, so that people weren't just sad and depressed all the time. The actor from The Office, the TV show. Anyways, so good news. There's this group called Angel Protocol that was born on the Terra Blockchain. And they actually created this incredible program that allowed for the creation of endowments for nonprofits. And generally, nonprofits can't afford to have someone on board to sort of manage an endowment. It's very expensive. They generally are just sort of working paycheck to paycheck, so to speak. So they don't even have the cash to sort of initiate an endowment. But what Angel Protocol does is they allowed folks to basically take their funds, put it on Anchor, and earn what used to be 20% yield for their charity. And they would sort of filter. So they'd set up an address for each charity, and they would allow folks to donate and sort of filter that money in. We selected 3 charities, or we identified 3 charities that were fighting climate change at the time. And we ran a campaign at the end of the year last year, between November 1st or so and end of year. And we were able to raise $1.5 million. The cool thing about this is it came in from all these different NFT collections, these different protocols that were crushing it at the time, doing very well, sort of in Terra's heyday. And they all wanted to hop in and give. Like they were competing with each other. We had a leaderboard actually to allow them to compete with each other and say, hey, this NFT collection has outbid this other NFT collection. Giving money to the Restore Earth campaign was the name of it. And the money was going to the Solar Electric Light Fund, 5 Gyres, and Global Brigades, which are 3 nonprofits that everyone should check out. But anyways, so we ended up raising $1.5 million from all these different from all these different organizations. One of the things we did, which was really cool, was we gave out these sort of galactic punk rewards, but we had versioned them into galactic angels. So galactic punks were the blue chip NFT collection on the Terra blockchain. We worked with their team closely to basically create this offshoot, and we gave folks rewards they were tiered based upon how much they donated to the cause. So we brought a lot of the sort of NFT and crypto ethos into giving, right? By rewarding people with NFTs, by having a leaderboard, by sort of directly donating into these accounts that functioned as endowments. And it was a fantastic experience. And again, we raised $500,000 for each of those charities. Now, there was the downfall of Terra was not a good kind of outcome to that. But at the very least, what it showed was there are good people in crypto that are not like SBF and not like, necessarily like Do Kwon, that are really trying to do good things and build interesting things that will be useful technologies for making the world a better place. And that's, by the way, that was the first thing that I did when I left Apple, was I ran that campaign because I loved what they were doing at Angel Protocol. I still advised for them. But like that group, they have 25,000 Twitter followers. They should have 2.5 million Twitter followers, and they're going like cross-chain right now. Those are the kinds of things that I think we need to be holding up as sterling examples of what crypto can do, rather than just, how much money can be made or lost.
Excellent. With security tokens, then kind of putting a device basically to protect everything before you do anything else, like you might kind of talk a bit on that.
Sure. So you've got, like, when you think about crypto generally, right, there are all these digitally provenance tokens. So they were born on chain. The value is of the chain, and the utility that they provide is sort of where their value is derived. So Bitcoin and Ethereum are good examples. But if you look at like Sushi or Aave or some other tokens that people may be familiar with, they're just kind of abstractions. And people are saying, all right, well, if a lot of people come and they swap tokens on Sushi, we'll accrue some fees, and then the owner of that token will have access to those fees. And that's all digitally provenance based off of the utility on chain, right? And there's, $1 trillion worth of assets, maybe it's less than $1 trillion now, 800 billion or so, 900 billion or so, that are on chain. But what we want to do is bring assets that aren't on the blockchain onto the blockchain, specifically physical assets. So if you're going to bring physical assets onto the blockchain, which I think we should do, by the way, because the more value that we have on a blockchain, the more efficient humans are, because it's a standard protocol for transferring value, and we want to put as much of the value that we interact with on chain. So if you're going to do that, you need to have some verification method to ensure that the physical thing is actually where it's supposed to be, that it's insured and that it's kind of accounted for. Now that leads to a degree of centralization, and that's why these are securitized tokens, because you need actual humans that are sort of trusted to say, like, yes, that thing is true. Like the Freeport team isn't just a bunch of bozos. We've done a background check on them. We've ensured that the structures they put in place for their tokens are legitimate. And that's how we can make sure that the physical object, when the value is represented on chain, is actually there, right? Like the thing that someone's investing in is actually there. So securitized tokens are kind of the solution to this, right? So we're not saying everything should be a security, to be very clear, but the very specific thing that we're doing, which is bringing a physical asset onto the blockchain, needing a verification layer between the physical thing and the value existing on chain, securitized tokens are the way to go. And historically, they've been used just for like real estate investment trusts. And there are a bunch of platforms that you can go to just sort of buy tokens and call it a day. But what we're doing is much more of the Web3 ethos, where it's, hey, you buy the token, you can actually withdraw it into your MetaMask wallet, it's on chain, and then you can do a lot of the fun things that blockchain allows for, like interoperability between protocols, or collection of NFTs that can impact whatever the token is of value to create a better customer experience. So top level, what we're doing is bring real world assets on chain. The securitization process is the verification layer. And right now, it's the best approach that we've got to do that, although it is a bit centralized.
And like, because I've seen like you've Andy Warhol art and things like that. Is it basically each one will be one of, say, 1 million, whatever the number be? Are you going to, each project is going to be done individually, that there'll be a certain number for each project?
Yep. So let's assume there are 5 Warhols to start in our pilot collection. Each Warhol will have 10,000 tokens, right? So you can purchase, and they're not different pieces of the Warhol like Particle Collection does. They're all fungible, and it just represents ownership in that one painting. So if you buy one, you've got 1/10,000 of that painting. The maximum that people will be able to buy is 10%, right? So 1,000 fractions of each painting, and that will be where we start. The rationale for that is, that puts us in the price range of about $25 to $75 for 1/10,000, which we think is a pretty reasonable buy-in, right? So right now, if you want to buy a Warhol, you're paying many tens of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, depending on the level of the Warhol. What we're allowing folks to do is basically gain exposure to that artwork, which has historically done very, very well in down markets like the one that we're in currently, without needing $100,000 or without needing $1 million to fully buy the painting. So if Warhols, I'm not promising this, but if they go up by 20% over the next 5 years each year, you're getting that exposure to the price increase, even though you're not investing the full $1 million or $2 million or $5 million, whatever it is. So that's kind of the premier benefit, or the primary benefit rather, of what we're offering with the security tokens.
And resale then, like, it'll be, because I've seen you've got this beautiful building on the sea, which is like your museum. So will the resale then kind of be showing in that as well, where, so if somebody invested and then they decide, it's gone up 20%, I want to cash out, do they do it in their own terms, or do they come into the market that you've got?
Yeah, so they do have to come into the market that we've got, and the reasoning for that is again regulation. Because these are security tokens, we have these proper channels and broker dealers through which they can be exchanged. But here's how it's going to work. Basically, we have the initial issuance, so the 10,000 tokens. People will come to the platform. Let's say we sell them out in the first day. That is our current goal. They come to the platform, they purchase. We sell out the first 10,000 tokens that represent a 1 Warhol. Within a couple of weeks, we're then going to open up a secondary market on Freeport. So you'll be able to come in, have the tokens that you just purchased, and then trade them on the open market as you see fit. And then we're also going to allow for the secondary moment of commerce, which is someone can come in and actually bid to buy out the entire piece. So let's say we've got a $500,000 Marilyn Monroe Warhol as an example. And that's what we sell it for initially in the primary offering. Then we move to secondary trading. The price goes up to $600,000. This is a completely hypothetical example, by the way. But then someone comes in and says, you know what? I just made a ton of money on whatever the new Bored Ape is, or whatever the new Fidenza is. I want to actually just own a Warhol. Well, they can come in and actually bid to buy out that physical piece. And we want to encourage that, because we want to be paying out our initial customers. Like if the price is up 25% and someone comes in and gives us a buyout offer, we'll pause trading, we'll assess that offer. If it's a solid offer for all of the users, we'll accept it, and then we'll distribute the funds to
will that be based on like
Warhol.
a kind of shareholding of a company, like that once you got a 51% agreement? Because you will always have somebody that go, I want to keep this forever, I don't want to sell it, let's say.
So we're trying to solve for that problem. So we're gonna be the decision makers to start. Our goal, and what we'll probably do for collections 2 through infinity, is to actually let our folks vote on chain, right? To say, yes, I do want to accept this bid, or no, I do not want to accept this bid. And as long as we get over a certain quorum, then we will accept that offer. To start for the first collection, we're just going to be able to say yes or no, because we don't want to run into that situation where we're not able to sell something to the benefit of our customers because we have a few who decide that they want to interrupt that operation. But we are Web3 decentralists, like spiritually, let's just say. So we do want to allow for people to make those decisions themselves over time.
And where is the actual NFT stored itself? Because just through conversations that I've had on this, I assumed at one stage that the NFT was actually the blockchain had all the details on it, but then I learned later that it's actually stored somewhere. And if that goes down, obviously with something as big as what you're doing, but how is somebody protected that if they do have the NFT, if somebody pulls the plug or you decide if something goes wrong, it's a...
Sure. So one clarification, this is pedantic, but we're using fungible tokens rather than NFTs. And the reason for that is we're going to have like actual individual, you can think of it as kind of equity shares in a company, right? That we're going to be selling. So that's why we've got the 10,000 of them, and they're fungible. They won't be the NFT format. So anyways, but what that means is, and one of the nice things about security tokens is, you know, to their detriment, they're a little bit centralized, but to their benefit, what happens is if you have, like, let's say Roy has 500 Maryland tokens in your wallet, and for some reason you lose your private keys and someone hacks into your account and they transfer, or they attempt to transfer your tokens out. Well, A, we can put controls on whether or not those tokens can even be transferred, but B, we can reissue those tokens because we do maintain an off-chain ledger of ownership. So all of that is to say effectively that it's much harder for someone to rob your ownership in this painting because we're going to physically maintain custody of the painting. We're going to keep it in a vault that's secure. That's actually this really awesome place I can't talk too much about, but it feels like Gringotts Vault in Harry Potter. So like the art is held there. We know physically where it's at and it's insured. And then we're representing the value on chain. So if for some reason something happens to the tokens that exist on chain, we're going to have an ultimate ledger that we can go back to and ensure that the right people are the ones who are getting paid out, let's just say, at the end of the life cycle of the piece.
And with, I'm just thinking aloud here, no, but with, say, the Andy Warhol paintings and stuff like that, is there possibilities, granted it's insured and everything, but if it's still insured, is it not possible that you could actually get an income and have it at a museum where more people are actually able to benefit from actually seeing the...
Yes, and our long-term plans, probably not even that long-term, to be clear. So we're a startup, so we're being focused on, hey, let's sell the actual artwork itself. Let's get people, the core product is exposure to fine art that they could never get access to otherwise, and that's like step one. Step two, though, like what you just mentioned, I absolutely love. There is the opportunity for revenue streams if we were to go and, like, you know, rent out the artwork to restaurants or museums or whoever else, and then we can distribute those funds to our users. So that's certainly on the roadmap. And then the second piece is just displaying the artwork, as you mentioned, in a location that they can come visit. So let's say if you own more than 0.1% of one of these paintings, and we have it in, let's say, like Zero Bond in New York City, which is this exclusive bar or restaurant, you could you know, make a reservation, come in, and sort of have your dinner underneath the Warhols that you own a portion of. Now that's not something we're doing at launch, but that's the kind of thing that we're wanting to bring to life for our customers. And then I have this long-term far-flung goal of having something like the Svalbard Seed Vault. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but sort of like if the world ends, we have all these seeds, and I think it's like Norway or
it's
somewhere.
In Norway, yeah, it is,
Norway,
yeah.
So imagine having a vault like that, but full of some of the finest art in the world, and then allowing Freeport collectors to come visit that vault, right? And they can see all of this artwork that's been stored there, but the value is represented on chain. So that's, you know, let's call that seven years plus. But yeah, we have all those intentions. We're just starting with the pure value proposition to start, which is, you know, you get exposure to this absurdly rare sort of art class that you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
Excellent. And because I went into like to view around and everything, and it's connecting your wallet then, and there's so many different wallets. I mean, just curious. I mean, it's a ledger that I use, but I saw, I don't know, is there like 30 or 20 or something like that that's actually shown on the system that you can go through?
Yeah, so the way that we're going to do it, so one of the reasons that we want people to connect their wallets, other than being able to sort of withdraw their tokens for the artwork into them, is that we can then display the other NFTs that are in their wallet there as well. So if you have a bunch of Bored Apes or Fidenzas or Azukis or whatever else you're into, we want to allow people to hang those in the same 3D gallery space that you were mentioning earlier. We've got this big city on the sea. That is our representation of Freeport, and it's where we should merge physical artwork, and where our customers can merge physical artwork and their NFTs into one location and customize the display of that. So part of what we're up to here is saying, well, cool, we have all these digitally provenance things that are on chain, which are the NFTs, and then we have these other assets that are off chain that we've brought on chain. But now, because they're both digitized and ownership and the value is brought to one place, we can merge those worlds together, and we can display that in Freeport in such a way that I think people are going to be really kind of impressed with. Now, we're only starting with Ethereum. I want to make that clear. We're not going to allow the connection of other types of wallets to start, but you could imagine a world in which, Solana wallets, assuming Solana survives the current state of affairs, Solana wallets could be connected as well, and we could display all of that artwork in Freeport along with the tokenized physical artwork that people own, so that you can just have one massive display of all things, both digital and physical, that you collect.
Because I have connected, I mean, with OpenSea and stuff like that, because I've got a few different NFTs and connected the Meta mask, and you just see wherever you go into, you just see everything. But with this, it was connect your ledger, and I was kind of a bit cautious, so there's no risk as such, is it, or how is it actually done? So for those that are connecting, say a ledger into this, when you're giving access to it.
Sure. I don't think we're mandating ledger connection right now. So hopefully you're at the right place. But here's what I will say. As far as, so we're going to be launching a demo in December, and the demo is going to be interaction with the gallery itself, so that people can see their NFTs. They'll be able to connect their wallet. They'll actually get a score, a ranking of their NFTs based upon the rarity of them and other things like that. But that's all going to be view only, right? So you connect your wallet. Don't give us we don't want any permissions other than just to view the contents of the wallet, so that we can display them, and then you can customize what's going on there. We're not going to request any other transactions. And I think this is standard practice for any non-sketchy platform, only like read only. So when you go and you connect your wallet, just make sure your MetaMask says, these are the permissions that you're giving this website. And it should just be sort of view only, or the ability for us to, potentially request transactions in the future, but we're not actually requesting any. To be clear. So that's kind of step one. At the end of the day, though, I do see what you're saying. There has been a conversation about, like, hey, I want to store my most valued NFTs off-chain or in cold storage, so that, like, I never have to think about this kind of exposure. And to be frank, if you have extremely expensive things and you don't want to take on the risk of even using, like, MetaMask, for instance, then that's probably the way to go. Now, unfortunately, what happens is, when your private keys are off chain and you're sort of not interacting with it on that front, it becomes no longer usable. Like, the interoperability, right, of Web3 is a little bit lost. Like, you can't see those NFTs there because they're off chain, unless you actually connect your ledger and decide to display them. So it's a completely fair approach for people that are very concerned with safety. But on the other hand, we need to be able to display the NFTs in some way, shape, or form if they're going to be in the gallery. So, we understand people that may not want to do that, but we think the risk is relatively low. I mean, our platform is obviously going to be of sterling standard, because we're going to be regulated by the SEC, and that just brings on a whole other level of sort of burden that you don't see in a lot of crypto projects. I will say that.
Okay, just finally, so you're doing something in December. So when's the actual, what's the kind of rollout that you're planning to have a few of them done? What's your actual roadmap?
So the fun stuff is December. Like, we've got the gallery, people can come customize, get the score that I just mentioned, and we're going to have some other sort of fun things that I can't talk about quite yet. But between December and March, we'll be building out different elements of the actual user experience. We'll be making sure the buy-sell works properly. And then at the end of March, possibly April, but we're targeting the end of March right now, you'll actually be able to purchase part of the first collection. And those are going to be the five Warhol pieces. We'll have, there's a wait list currently that folks can go sign up for on Freeport.app, so that they have kind of all the most up-to-date information and a chance to be part of an early access list, so that, if these Warhols end up selling out as quickly as we expect them to, they can be in the group that gets to them first.
Excellent. So you might let people know, how can they get in contact with you?
Sure. So Freeport.app, as I just mentioned, if you want to have the continuous updates, that's where I go to start. But we also have a Twitter account, which is Freeport_app. You can reach these from Freeport.app, though, as well as an Instagram account, which is Freeport.app as well, at Freeport.app. So that's really all you have to remember, at Freeport.app. People can also reach out to me on Twitter. It's at Colin H. Johnson. Or Farcaster, which I'm a huge fan of now, which is sort of, again, the decentralized version of Twitter, and it's at Colin Dash there.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I'll make sure I'll put all the links, both the audio and the video. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Roy.
No worries. So that's all for the Crypto Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and everything about me and my other podcasts can be found on bio.link/podcaster. Until next week, take care.